It begins as a whisper against the quiet night. A knock, soft, deliberate, measured. Knock, knock, knock. Jim Mallory sat up in bed, heart racing. Outside his window, the wind moaned through the trees, rattling the loose gutter on the porch. He squinted at the clock. 12:13 a.m. Who could be visiting at this hour? The knock came again, 3 slow, deliberate raps on the door. He swung his legs over the bed, his old wooden floor creaking underfoot. Grabbing a flashlight, he crept to the front of the house. His porch light flickered, struggling against the dense fog that had crept in like a living thing. The air felt heavy, unnatural, as if the night itself was holding its breath. He peered through the peephole. 2 children stood on the porch. A boy, maybe 12, and a girl, younger, perhaps 8. Their skin was pale, almost gray. They wore ill-fitting, outdated clothes, the boy in a tattered jacket, the girl in a thin dress despite the cold. But it was their eyes that froze Jim in place. Black, featureless voids, absorbing the dim light. The boy spoke, voice flat, robotic. "Sir, can we come in? We're cold. We need to call our mother." Jim's breath caught in his throat. His fingers hovered over the lock, trembling. Every instinct screamed, "Don't open the door." The girl shifted, her gaze piercing. "Please, it's so cold." A wave of nausea surged through him, as if the air itself had thickened, pressing in on his lungs. The flashlight dimmed. The porch light buzzed louder, then steadied. Jim's grip tightened on the doorframe, fighting the strange compulsion building inside him. His pulse thundered in his ears. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the children were gone. No footsteps fading into the distance, no sound of retreat, just emptiness. Jim stumbled back, heart hammering, his mind racing. The house seemed colder now, the shadows deeper. And yet, in the lingering silence, one sound remained, a faint, rhythmic tapping on the glass of the window. Knock, knock, knock. The black-eyed children don't just knock, they whisper. Across the country, reports trickle in, strange, fragmented accounts. Always the same story, 2 or 3 children, pale skin, lifeless eyes, always asking for help, always whispering. Melissa Connor, a high school teacher in rural Oregon, knew nothing of these stories until the night she stayed late grading papers at the school. It was nearly 1 a.m. when she left, her car parked under the dim glow of a street lamp, the lot deserted. As she approached the car, she felt it, that prickle on the back of her neck, a pressure in the air like a coming storm. Sitting on the curb, half shrouded in shadow, were 2 boys, their faces blank, their eyes dark pits. "Can you give us a ride?" the older one asked, voice flat and hollow, as if spoken through a static-filled radio. Melissa stopped cold. Her keys slipped from her fingers, clattering on the asphalt. The younger boy's lips parted in a smile, too wide, too sharp, and she could swear she heard a faint whispering, curling into her mind like smoke. "Let us in, let us in." The whispers grew louder, layered, dozens of voices all blending into a single, pulsing chant. Melissa lunged for her keys, hands shaking. She fumbled them into the lock, slid into the driver's seat, and slammed the doors shut. Her breath fogged the glass, the air inside thick and heavy. The radio burst to life. Static, then whispers, then a low, droning hum that vibrated through her bones. "Let us in." She tried the ignition. Nothing. The headlights flickered, pulsing in time with the whispers. Her vision blurred, nausea rising. The boys pressed their faces closer to the glass, unmoving, unblinking. Then, silence. The radio died. The lights steadied. The boys were gone. Melissa sat frozen, heart hammering, staring at her pale reflection in the darkened window. She never spoke of it again, but every night since, when the wind howls just right, she swears she hears them, whispering in the static, in the trees, in her dreams. Let us in. For some, the nightmare doesn't end at the window. Derek Foster was a long-haul trucker used to empty highways and lonely nights, but nothing could prepare him for what he saw one moonless night on a stretch of deserted road outside Flagstaff, Arizona. It was past 2 a.m., and Derek's headlights cut a narrow path through the dark. The desert stretched out endlessly on either side, silent, still, suffocating. That's when he saw them. 2 small figures standing at the edge of the road, barely illuminated by the headlights. He slowed, instinct taking over. Kids out here, in the middle of nowhere. He rolled down the window, peering out into the dark. The boy stepped forward. "Can you give us a ride?" His voice was flat, almost robotic. The girl, standing behind him, stared directly at Derek, her eyes wrong. They were black, like obsidian, reflecting no light. Derek's gut clenched. His dog, a normally fearless shepherd, began to whine, cowering behind the seat. The hair on Derek's arms stood on end. I can't help you," he muttered, voice shaking. The boy tilted his head, expressionless. "Please, it won't take long." Derek slammed the window shut, threw the truck into gear, and sped off. His heart pounded, breath ragged. But as he glanced into the rearview mirror, his blood ran cold. They were there, sitting calmly in the backseat, staring at him. His vision blurred, the radio crackled, whispers bleeding through the static, growing louder and louder, merging into that same low, droning hum. Derek swerved wildly, tires screeching. The truck shuddered, headlights flashing. Then everything went black. When he came to, he was parked on the side of the road. The cab was empty. His dog cowered in the footwell, whimpering. Derek never spoke of it again, but he never drove night routes after that. And sometimes, in the dead of night, he swore he could see them, just for a second, watching from the rearview mirror. For some, encounters with the black-eyed children leave more than just fear. They leave gaps, whole hours swallowed into the void, missing time. Rachel and David Kim were an ordinary couple, driving home from a family dinner in rural Montana. It was late, just past 1 a.m. The road was empty, winding through a dense forest, moonlight filtering in slivers between the towering pines. Rachel had just dozed off in the passenger seat when David hit the brakes. A boy was standing in the middle of the road. He couldn't have been more than 10, pale, barefoot, wearing a threadbare sweater too thin for the cold night. David's headlights caught his face. And those eyes. Black, infinite, as if the night sky had swallowed his pupils whole. David cracked the window, heart pounding. "Hey kid, are you lost? Do you need help?" The boy didn't move, his lips barely parted, and a whisper inside David's head, not spoken aloud, slid in like a blade. "Let us in." David's vision blurred. The air seemed to ripple, the trees bending slightly toward the road as if pulled by an unseen force. The dashboard lights flickered. Rachel stirred awake, rubbing her eyes. "What's going on?" she murmured. David opened his mouth to answer, but the boy was gone, vanished. The road ahead lay empty. Confused, he glanced at the clock, and his blood ran cold. It was 3:47 a.m. 2.5 hours. Rachel blinked at the clock, then at David, her face pale, breath shallow. It was just past 1, she stammered. Neither of them could remember anything after seeing the boy. Not a moment. not a sound. In the days that followed, Rachel's dreams became dark and twisted. She'd wake in a cold sweat, images burned into her mind. Standing in a dark field, the boy watching her from a distance, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. His black eyes gleaming, and the sound of knocking, 3 soft taps, over and over again. David tried to move on, but Rachel became obsessed, scouring the internet, desperate for answers. That's when she found others, people just like them. Different locations, different years, but always the same story. Pale children with black eyes. Requests for help, whispered voices, and missing time. Their case, like so many others, was never explained. Officially, it was chalked up to fatigue, a shared hallucination. But Rachel knows better. She still hears them sometimes, in the still of the night, a whisper, faint and persistent. Let us in. Not all who encounter the black-eyed children are lucky enough to escape. For some, the nightmare follows them home, clings to the walls, seeps into the floorboards and waits for the perfect moment to return. Esther Diaz was a quiet woman, a widow who lived alone in a creaky farmhouse on the outskirts of Taos, New Mexico. She had lived there for over 50 years, raising her children, burying her husband, growing old in the same creaking chair by the window. People in town said she was tough, stubborn as the desert sun. That is, until the knocking began. At first, it was subtle. 3 soft knocks at 2:33 a.m., always the same time. Esther thought it was the wind, the old house settling. But then came the whispers, low and curling, slithering through the cracks in the walls, whispering her name. Esther, let us in. Her neighbors noticed the change. Esther stopped coming to town. Her lights stayed on all night. Curtains drawn tight, shadows moving behind the glass when no one should have been home. When the sheriff finally went to check on her, he found the front door slightly ajar, the air inside heavy and cold. Esther sat in her chair, staring at the front door, eyes wide, unblinking, lips trembling as if she were still trying to speak. Deep scratches marred the wooden walls, long, jagged grooves, as if something with claws had tried to tear its way inside. On the table, under the flickering glow of a single lamp, lay an old leather-bound journal. Her handwriting, once neat and steady, had grown shaky and uneven. The last entry read, "They come every night now. They watch from the windows, waiting. If you let them in, you never leave." Esther never spoke again. She was taken to the hospital, where she passed away 3 weeks later, her final words a barely audible whisper. "They're still waiting." The farmhouse remains abandoned, but locals say if you pass by after midnight, you'll see shapes at the windows. Shadows that shouldn't be there. And if you stop, if you dare to listen, you might hear it. 3 soft knocks and a voice calling her name. So, who or what are they? The black-eyed children remain an enigma, a shadow in the corner of the world's collective memory. Urban legend, mass hysteria, a shared delusion, or something far more sinister. Theories abound, each more unsettling than the last. Some believe they are spirits, lost souls trapped between worlds, seeking entry into ours. Others whisper of ancient beings, parasites in human form, feeding off fear, latching onto the minds of the vulnerable. A few even suggest extraterrestrial origins, interdimensional travelers slipping through cracks in reality. But those who have truly seen them, who have felt the cold dread that follows, know the truth is far darker. Thomas Greer knew. A retired schoolteacher from Pennsylvania, Thomas was a rational man, a skeptic by nature, until the night he encountered them. It was late October, the trees stripped bare, the air thick with the smell of damp leaves. Thomas had been reading by the fire when the knocking came. 3 slow raps on the door. He peeked through the blinds. 2 children stood in the dark, faces pale, eyes black as oil. He didn't open the door, but they came back. Every night for a week, they returned, knocking, whispering, waiting. Thomas never let them in, but something changed. He began to feel watched. Flickers of movement in the mirrors, whispers beneath the floorboards. His reflection, at times, seemed wrong, a fraction off, smiling when he wasn't. In his final journal entry, dated November 4th, 2003, Thomas wrote, "They are not children. They are not alive. They are the watchers in the dark. Once you see them, they see you, and they do not forget." Thomas died in his sleep that night, his face twisted in a mask of terror. His house was cleared, his belongings sold at auction. Among them, a photograph, an old family portrait, blurred and faded. In the background, barely visible, 2 small figures standing in the doorway, faces pale, eyes black. The photo has since vanished. So, who are they? The question lingers, unanswered, gnawing at the edges of our understanding. Maybe they're waiting outside your window tonight. Maybe you'll hear it, a knock, 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. And when you do, will you open the door?